It's your boy ConserViz34. Today is March 25th, 2018. I just wanted to reflect on Linkin Park's sophomore album, Meteora. It's 15 years old today, and it's an album that is very special to my growth and progress in music. Now, Linkin Park was one of the first bands that I really was huge into. As you see now, in that realm of new metal, I don't listen to that genre anymore. I still listen to hip hop a lot, and it had elements of hip hop. But this album was pivotal to my growth and development in music, and being 12 at the time, towards being 13, I was gonna get in later that year to my teenage years, this album changed me and changed my musical journey. So let's talk about some of the things I like about this. Just like my Pink Floyd reflection, I love how this album is short. Every song means something. And Linkin Park had a very popular mainstream first album, not off the bat, but as time went on, and that's how fans like me became privy to Linkin Park, was by Hybrid Theory, and they followed it up with an album that every song, in my opinion, has a meaning, has a purpose. Some of them may be better than others for people, but every song had a purpose. 36 minutes and 43 seconds for the standard version of this album. The other thing that I liked about this album is, as a preteen at the time, the album really looked at serious struggles of the mind, struggles of identity, and it did it in a way that wasn't immature. It did it in a way that wasn't just all cursing and swearing. Now, yes, there are great elements of music that involve lots of profanity, and also anger and rage that needs that profanity, and sometimes to make its point. But this album was 100% clean, and that's why I could get it. That's why it was accessible to me. It was really something that parents like mine were able to say, okay, this band doesn't, have these vulgar and crazy parental advisory type lyrics. They are clean. So that means it's accessible to me for the decision makers that have the money to buy this album for me. So that's what I liked about it as well. But when you look at songs like Breaking the Habit, and it deals with addiction, and Numb, dealing with a struggle with family members or people that just, when you're young and when you're growing, try to put all this weight on you. When you look at songs like Somewhere I Belong, and just that song probably is one of the biggest impacts to my life back then at the time, was just that message of just finding a niche, being someone who loved, who grew up in the suburbs and loved playing, loved rap and rock music. And this Linkin Park was where I belonged, and not to have first world problems, because my life was great as a kid, living in middle class suburbia, but the mental struggles, and you see what goes on now with these kids, and what went on back in my day as a kid, and the crazy things that happens when these kids are bringing guns to schools post-Columbine, when I was growing up, and still now. And you see people, these kids, again, going after people outside of school and doing crazy stuff. This album really was something that kept me mentally right during my preteen years. Not that I was going to be some crazy nut job, but it helped me to be confident in who I was. And that's the thing. Meteora just, it touched so many people, and you can talk about its mainstream. It is cheesy at times. It is very popish at times. It gets into the hip hop as well. But to me, Meteora still is, and was at the time, was just, it's a very powerful album. It's to the point, it's quick. And I still remember going to Walmart a little bit after this release. I think it was like the week after this came out. I was on I think it was April vacation, and I bought this album, and I remember listening to it over and over again. And it's just, Meteora is a very great album. I can't say it enough to, again, my growth and development. And one of the things that was cool again about Linkin Park was they didn't have a lot of material, but the material they had at the time was flames. because in that, this is another example of this, is that you had Hybrid Theory for a couple years nonstop, over and over, and then we got Meteora for years, over and over. And really, a lot of fans think that this is the the last great no misses at all album of Linkin Park. Now, there's debates about Minutes to Midnight and all the material after that, and I love all the materials. My only kind of album in question was the last album that they put out, and I gave my opinions on that. But this is really just an album that, for a generation of mine, being a kid born in 1990 and kids a little after me and some of the kids born before me, Hybrid Theory and Meteora are just albums that kind of defined our generation. They're not albums that you can put up musically head to head with many of the great Rolling Stones albums or the Zeppelin albums or Rush albums or what have you, but they impacted us just like those albums impacted those previous generations. And to me, impact is more important than the actual, can this hold up to another generation's music? No. I mean, the classic rock era of the 70s and then sometimes in the late or mid to late 60s will never be replicated again. But there needs to be music for the youth that helps them find who they are. And to me, nowadays, that's 21 Pilots. The stuff they do, and I'll probably make a video on that in a bit. I've seen them live. What they're doing is just amazing. Again, for the mental health of these kids, for the confidence of these kids, that the biggest thing that's going to face them is not someone punching them in the face, but mentally going crazy, mentally thinking that they don't want to live anymore. And I know, again, this may be cliche and sugar-coated, but I mean, music, the power of music is so important in every generation. It's so important right now with what these kids are facing mentally, not physically, but mentally. So shout out to Linkin Park, and rest in peace, Chester Bennington. And thank you for sharing this album with kids like me, because while we don't have Chester here any longer, I'm sure thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lives have been impacted and even saved from some of the issues dealt with in this album. Definitely like, comment, subscribe. Otherwise, I am out.